that existed where you kind of knew for the first time ever that everyone was at home or somewhere, sitting around with a common sense of uncertainty and dread, and kind of take advantage of that to speak to people that speak to sort of other creatives and filmmakers and editors and writers and producers and whatever, and talk about their films and kind of get in their heads, but via this community that we tried to create of film fans and of Bastille fans and all these people who just wanted to talk about film. And for us, that was the kind of a real amazing lifeline. And obviously, Fern, you were doing a lot of other things as well. And yeah, I guess just I guess we'll just open the conversation with that. Like, what did you get up to? Like at the very beginning, what was your first? Having got through the sort of uncertainty and panic of it all in your house, like was there a moment when you were like, right, I'm gonna focus on this specific thing? Or
I don't know if there was a moment. I think, like everybody else, I went through that initial reaction to what was going on, feeling like very discombobulated, like half of me. Sorry, let me just turn my email off because that's going to be super annoying.
We'll get to hear how popular you are, so that's all right.
There you go. Well, it's just the emails from my manager going, "Why haven't you done this?" So I felt very discombobulated, but half of me felt like, God, this is such a cool novelty because I haven't got to be anywhere and I'm a real hermit. So that really suited me. And then the other half of me was just sort of like, what the hell is going on? I feel like I'm in a film. I still do to some extent. What on earth is happening? And that sort of low level anxiety that's just sort of omnipresent. So, to be honest, like listening to you talk there, Dan, I think I've realised I live my life in a sort of perpetual state of being distracted because I find it really hard to sit with my own thoughts. And I notice it every morning when I wake up. I have to quite literally get out of bed immediately because otherwise my brain starts going, oh God, what about this thing? What about that in the past? What about this thing to be scared of in the future? And I'm like, nope, I need to go and do stuff. So I'm a real doer because I like being distracted. And I think there are positives and negatives with that. Positives because I get a lot done, but negatives that I'm not actually dealing with stuff always. I kind of carve out time within like doing therapy or some of the work that I'm doing now where I have to look at bits of my life that feel uncomfortable, but I really like being distracted. I really love being busy and creating and doing stuff. So after I got through that initial bit of just going like, what the hell is happening? Oh my God, the kids are home from school the whole time. That's when I think I actively looked to distract myself more than usual because it was like, I can't actually handle what's going on here. So I've been very busy, which I feel very fortunate about because I openly like looked for distraction as soon as I felt like there was an opportunity to.
When you say distraction, does that involve connection? Because for me, it's not just about being distracted. It's about connecting with other human beings, which in lockdown just became a different way of doing that. But it wasn't just about endlessly doing tasks. Distraction involves, it's a sort of two-way street, as it were.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's been a bit of both. Like some of it has just sort of been like mindless distraction, like wanting just to keep doing stuff, like I'm going to go and reorganize a cupboard or, like silly things, to then going, right, what would be really meaningful at the moment? And I'm really lucky that with the work that I do now with Happy Place, that is our constant driving force, is to look for connection and to look for new ways to do that and new ways to open up, what I hope are important conversations or nourishing conversations. And, we have to stay connected to people or look for new ways to connect with newer audiences. And really the pandemic and that, going into that first lockdown was a real catalyst for us to ramp that up because we understood, like everybody did immediately, how disconnected everybody felt, sort of unmoored, and also, at the extreme end of it, really lonely. Like I'm sure you will both know people like I do that have been severely lonely throughout this whole, last year and a bit. And that breaks my heart. And I, if anything, I had the opposite in this house because I had like, kids climbing on me all day and sort of shouting at me, and there was no loneliness. I was sort of actively looking for moments of solitude, but I know how hard it's been for people and people in my life who have had the opposite, and the podcast especially became this real genuine way of us having a conversation with lots of people at any one time, and to really try and hone what that conversation was and what it would mean for people, to bring, much like what you're doing, comfort, distraction, sometimes fun, escapism, to what was quite a bleak time, so it definitely made me think about the work I'm doing a lot more thoroughly.
Yeah, and I guess it's interesting, maybe you found some kind of solitude in those working moments as well, but it definitely, I think, for those who were lucky enough to sort of have places to find connection, be it through friends and family or people that they work with and they were able to keep working, I think those things were like a massive lifeline. And I think that was where for us, and one thing that I've sort of realized in touring in the past quite a lot and meeting people, we're very fortunate enough to tour all over the place and meeting people after gigs, and I guess trying to get into the mindset of someone who is so obsessed with a band or something that they'd want to follow them around or travel, and go to a city, but wait all day outside a venue and then all night to potentially meet them afterwards. Not being that person, I've always kind of wondered where that comes from. And it is always just fascinating chatting to people and realizing, as someone who, is really obsessed with my friends and my family and wants to be sociable all the time, that there are obviously just so many people out there that don't have as many connections or want them, but don't have them, and look for that in other things. And I think not to impose any more kind of weight and meaning on the things that we do, because ultimately it's, like you said, it's a distraction. It should be fun and it should be engaging and hopefully enlightening, but whatever. I think for us, that was, this distraction tactics was a really nice, I think the thing we all found, well, Charlotte and I found really moving in doing it, was seeing this community that was kind of forged, having in this rudderless time, this kind of open ocean of what the hell's going to happen in front of you, to have this kind of weekly fix, this weekly moment of being able to connect, being able to chat. And obviously it wasn't serious. People were just it initially rolled out on Instagram, so we're trying to seriously talk about a film or interview someone like Taika Waititi, and just seeing people rinsing me for whatever.
Oh, we love that one.
Or friends popping up and being like, "You're terrible at interviewing," which I am and was. But yeah, I think it. Yeah.
What was amazing, wasn't it, Dan? Was that because each week, so it was sort of worked like a book club where we'd go to a different place each week. So one week was New Zealand, one week was Germany, one was France, and then midweek we get people to send in their questions and we'd write them all down, which took a whole day, didn't. But what was amazing was to see that they were from the Galapagos Islands or Germany or India or Indonesia or Mexico, and they were all engaged. And that, when you were living in this little tiny isolation of your home, to feel that sense of community. Do you get that with Happy Place? Do you get messages?
Yeah, but you know what? I've had it even more so with my Radio 2 show. So I started, it was literally the week before lockdown, I started my new radio show, which is called Sounds of the 90s, which again, I think for so many people of my age, I felt like a deep need to be nostalgic, because even more so, not only do I now, I'm at the point in life where I can look back at a whole decade like the 90s and think, God, it was actually really good. And I don't think you see that until there's a bit of space and time and, capacity to sort of have hindsight. But also because, looking back now, in the 90s, we were completely free, whereas we've been under so many restrictions over the last year. You can't have someone come in your house, or you can't go out and hang out with a group of people, and you then look back to the 90s and go, oh my God, we didn't even have phones. That was amazing not having a phone. That was wonderful not having social media. And I know we can all be rose tinted about it, but I think actually being nostalgic in a time like what we've just been through, which is very extreme, can be really, really beautiful. And that's when we've really noticed, we've had beautiful emails, really well structured, well thought out emails from Brits who'd been living in Australia for the past few years, who really wanted that sort of, they felt a bit homesick and they wanted to think back to the good old days and to feel as sort of a slice of the UK, or people that, you know, have actually quite a lot of listeners in America who are American, but just remember, you know, the whole sort of era of Britpop or the Spice Girls and whatever. And that's felt really special. And we've all sort of shared memories with each other of, you know, our first snog in the 90s, or the first gig we went to, or stupid nightclub names in the 90s. Like my local nightclub was called Destiny, you know, just ridiculous things. But that's brought us, I think, a lot of joy. Me and the team who work on it have just been blown away by the sort of thoroughness of the emails we're getting. And I think, again, people just really feel like they want that connection.
I was thinking about what you were saying earlier about the need to be busy, and I massively relate to, you know, to what you said. It's why, like, I sleep really badly the second that I wake up in the night. I can't shut off my mind, and distraction is a big thing for me, be it, you know, reading films, audiobooks, whatever. I've found, and I think speaking to a lot of other people have maybe found that it's been a struggle in lockdown to sit and concentrate on something for a really long time. And, you know, films being what they are, they require a lot of time. Reading, you know, being an active process that also requires like a fair amount of concentration. I know loads of people who have looked back at the last year or year and a half and have sort of being like frustrated by how little they've read and how little they've kind of digested. On the flip side, there are also people who've like quite happily just sat back and watched every film under the sun and like churned through every series that anyone's ever recommended ever. And there are obviously a lot of good and terrible. I was just wondering for you, who's like our thing, this being a film festival, and us thinking about films, and, you know, I guess later we can talk about the optimism of, you know, cinemas opening back up again and certain things from the old life coming back as realities. But yeah, like for you, as you know, obviously you are lucky enough in all your work to have these quite sort of connected, engaged conversations, which must be amazing, giving you an insight into all these different people's lives and their last years, you know, pre and post pandemic. But for you, like a films for you, your family, like you and your partner, like is that like a part of life? Have they been helpful distractions?
Yeah, actually, right at the start of the first lockdown for the kids, because I've really felt for, well, all four of the kids, because, you know, we've got two teenagers and then the two little ones, and it affected them all very differently. So for the older ones, obviously they've got phones so they could talk to each other and they could go on, you know, FaceTime or whatever and Snapchat and all that stuff. But for the little ones, they were really, you know, they just didn't have the stimulation they'd normally have. So we were at first going, what are we going to do to keep these guys feeling okay through it? So we did start up right at the beginning of the first lockdown doing a weekly movie night. So we'd usually do it like after the NHS clap, we'd let them stay up a little bit later that night and usually do it on that evening. And we watched some pretty good films. Some weren't great, and I can't remember the ones that weren't great, but I'd find myself like, I'd be doing emails on my phone halfway through. But the ones that I remember really loving, and this is over the last 12 months, two really stick out. And one is Soul, which was just glorious. I cried. My son was like, what is wrong with you? What are you doing? It's like, this is just so deeply moving. And he was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. And also, I did not expect to love this film as much as I did, but I really liked the new Tom and Jerry film.
Oh, really?
Oh, it was really good.
I've not seen it. Have you, Charlotte, have you seen it?
Liked it?
I'm sorry, I've seen Soul and loved Soul, but I haven't seen Tom and Jerry.
I really liked it. I thought it was great. It kept me entertained the whole way through. I laughed out loud a couple of times.
Excellent.
It was very, very watchable.
Sounds
very,
like
very watchable.
I thought Soul was. I mean, Pixar are just like, they're just second to none at kind of managing to make a film that everyone, no matter sort of
so good
what you've had, can engage with or what age you are. Like, it's just real sad things that affect everybody and are, you know, and don't sugarcoat life. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Is there a film that makes you feel nostalgic, talking about your 90s and
there are a few. I would say it's by no means sort of like art house or off the beaten track, but I would say Four Weddings and a Funeral is deeply nostalgic to watch, because obviously, like back in the day, and I try and tell my kids this and they just cannot comprehend it, their brains are just like, I was like, we didn't have we didn't have all these channels, we didn't have all these choices. I was like, I used to have 3 VHSs, and they were Four Weddings and a Funeral, Moonwalker, and The Labyrinth. And I remember them because there were 3. I didn't have any more. So I would watch them on a loop. And Four Weddings and a Funeral is one that I really then took into my adult life. So like when I moved out of home at 19, and you're sort of excited and liberated, but also terrified that you're not with your parents anymore. I remember like watching Four Weddings and a Funeral still on my VHS to sort of feel safe. And I think it's just such a watchable, feel good, but also really poignant film. And I will never tire of that movie. I just absolutely love it. So I think that one makes me feel really happy.
I think that's a really interesting thing about film, and obviously music as well. But we have these films that we watched as children, and obviously as kids and as teenagers, I think your capacity to constantly redigest the same things is totally different. Like they take it's entertainment, but it is also like it's the kind of, it's the entertainment version of a warm hug, isn't it? Like
yes.
I found it in our house, we watched Cool Runnings loads, because that for me is just, it's super nostalgic. It's that kind of, it may have problems retrospectively, but ultimately it's a kind of like positive, beautiful film that's quite funny. And like you said, it might not be like the best film ever made, but those films have such a special place. I was quite a weird kid. I loved horror films as well, so my like what was comforting to me back then is probably less comforting to me now. But it's weird that that sort of desire to want to rewatch stuff. Have you seen the last time you saw Four Weddings? And it must be such
not for a long time. Like, I mean, it might have been in my first flat when I was sort of in my early 20s. I can't imagine that I've watched it since, but I would really like to. I think I wouldn't be bored watching it. But it's funny as a kid because I can see my own children now. Rex will watch the same thing, or Honey will watch what's it called, Secret Life of Pets, endlessly. She won't tire of it, and the same bits are still funny, and it's so adorable that that there is again that comfort in, I know that this is a safe thing to watch, I know this is a lovely thing to watch. So we do have, there was like a Moana phase where that was on a lot, and we go through the sort of cycles of films. Rex is much more into watching like wildlife documentaries at the moment, so that's kind of a nice break from watching sort of trolls endlessly. But I think there is like real comfort in revisiting films.
What about you, Charlotte? Was there anything for you, like either in different stages of life or in this slightly mad
lockdown?
Yeah,
definitely turned to films loads. Weirdly, I went really, really retro, like things like Singing in the Rain.
Yeah,
complete escapism and the kind of joy of dancing in the rain. And I do think it's something about, in a time of absolute uncertainty, knowing what's coming next.
Yes.
Knowing what's happening. And my youngest daughter gave me for Christmas little tokens. So, because I was always going, you've got to watch this with me, because part of us starting distraction tactics was that we always wanted other people to watch the movies we loved. And so I'd have to think really carefully which token I would use, because then she'd watch it with me. So going back to doing things that I really, really wanted to show her, and I wanted her to experience with me.
I did that with Lola actually during lockdown. So with my stepdaughter, I was like, there's some really good things that I keep remembering that we need to watch. So more recently we watched, and it was her first time watching it, The Truman Show. I loved that she liked it. I was like praying, like, please like this and enjoy it with me. And she watched the whole thing, and we talked about it afterwards. And it was, nostalgic and familiar to me, but it was exciting for me to watch her watching it for the first time.
Yes, there's a pleasure in that, isn't there?
Yeah.
It completely backfired on me for Christmas. I erected this giant screen that's like the size of a room, for everyone to watch It's a Wonderful Life, and they lasted about 3 minutes before they all left by myself with my popcorn.
It's always a risk. It's that roulette, particularly with things that you remember affectionately from like the past, because you potentially were a slightly different person back then, and your levels of like what was good, bad, and entertaining can shift wildly. But that's always the risk when you like hype someone up to sit down and watch something, and then they are totally not.
Like, what is this? I remember once my friend was like, "You've got to get Arthur and Lola to watch Oh my God, it was the worst thing ever. It's this weird, it's a really famous film. What's it called? And it's got puppets, and they actually look so bad now. And it's all like mystical, and
Like Never Ending Story or something.
it's like that, but it's not that. Oh God, what's it called? It's going to really annoy me. It will come. But anyway, he hyped it up so much. We were all together and we were all sat there looking at each other like, I don't think we're going to get through this. Like, the puppeteering was so bad. It was like such poor quality. It will come to me in a bit. But anyway, yes, it can backfire. That is so true.
What about Happy Place? Was it easier to find people to talk to you during lockdown?
Surprisingly, yes, because we really panicked because we were in the middle of a series, I think, or about to start one. And I was like, oh my God, because I'd done all of them in person, and the thought of doing an interview not with the person there felt so ridiculous. I just thought that's never going to work. And then literally on week one, we secured Alicia Keys, and I was like, this is going to be fine.
We're in.
And all of a sudden, I'm like on Zoom looking into Alicia Keys' front room going, oh my God, I really like her blinds. This is so cool. I can't believe I'm talking to Alicia Keys. And it's been actually that series, I think, because everybody felt, we were all in the same boat. Everybody was frustrated because they had albums to release, movies to promote, books to promote, whatever, and they couldn't go anywhere. They were looking for new ways of connecting with new audiences and having long form conversations that weren't, like a 2-minute radio interview. So in that series, we had like Alicia Keys, Deepak Chopra, oh God, who else? We had like one of the best series ever, because like Wim Hof, because everyone would just sort of sat around going, I can't do anything. Yeah. So we had amazing access. That first sort of lockdown, everybody was so eager to still work that we had such an amazing series. It was sort of like mind-blowing. And now I think we're in this weird...
people listened in during lockdown.
Yeah. I think, we were lucky in the fact that people had more time, but actually more than that, people needed something that was going to be helpful because they felt so unsettled. So I did try to sort of think about subject matters that would be useful. So like having, Deepak on was just legendary because he is the master of looking at how we, bring meditation into the everyday or just look at life with an expansive view. So we really tried to really concentrate on the topics that we were researching and exploring to be helpful, because there's no point if it's not helpful. There's an element which is good, that it's just an hour of escapism, but actually it's got to be helpful. So that's helped us to sort of really refine and distill what we're doing with it. But now we're in a weird limbo land where some people are going back to normal and some aren't, and some are delaying projects and some aren't. So it's been a bit more challenging to get guests. Not, and by no means am I upset with the caliber of guests we've had. We've had brilliant guests throughout, but it's just taken a lot more sort of work to get them on board with doing it, because I think everyone's sort of waiting for this. Everything's going back to normal, so they're like delaying book releases, delaying films, whatever. So it's been a bit more work this year, but it's it's a joy every time. I just love making it.
And what about the festival? Oh, sorry, Dan.
No. I was just going to say, I think there was that moment that we sort of found as well when we started Distraction Tactics and kind of went through that there was that sort of weird, I mean, there was obviously the underlying anxiety, but the weird piece that came with knowing that everyone, no matter what they do, was probably not doing anything.
Yeah.
and some people enjoying that and some people not, but that's kind of paved the way for these conversations with these really interesting people who, we were all unified by obviously very different versions of very different situations, but of reacting to this one same thing, which is like, I guess those moments of connection are kind of what you look for in a chat, in an interview, or just, in life at all. And that was like, yeah, I don't know. I think that really, and I'm sure you've found it as well, just it really like changed the tone of conversations that would have otherwise been.
Yeah, because there's instantly common ground. We're instantly going, oh God, how's homeschooling? Like Alicia Keys is in the same boat as me all of a sudden. Yeah. Like she's homeschooling and she's having to think outside the box with entertainment for her kids. It doesn't matter where she lives or what her job is. We're in the same boat. And I think that common ground connected the audience with the guest more. And it was just interesting to see how people were sort of navigating it, really. So it's definitely made for some interesting series over the last year.
when we spoke to Taika Waititi in one of the first episodes, he was like in LA with his two daughters, like running in and out, like crashing around.
Oh, I've had so much of that.
His hair, hadn't they?
Oh yeah,
given him a terrible haircut.
Oh yeah.
which
We've
is,
all been through that, like kids running in when I'm doing a really big interview. It's like, oh, I think Rex ran in when I was interviewing George Ezra because he knew that it was George Ezra and he loves George Ezra. And I was like, I'm so sorry about this. He sort of took over the interview slightly. It was
amazing.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry, Charlotte, I massively spoke across you. What were you gonna ask?
Oh no, I was asking about what changes you had to make. Because I know you were going to do the Happy Place Festival.
Yeah.
And then I think it's that thing of just having to swap things around.
Oh, it was so quick. It was so quick because, so say in March, you know, when there were sort of rumblings of this all going on, we were still like, what does this mean? Like, when none of us knew, did we? Like, what's going to happen? Is this going to be like 2 weeks and then we go back to normal? Like, we were all so naive and like just didn't have a clue. And it became very apparent in sort of April that nothing was going to be happening anytime soon. And our festival was planned for the London Festival in August and the Manchester one in September. And we were also going to try and do another venue in July. So all of a sudden we were like, right, none of that's happening. What are we going to do? So in about, I guess it was 2 months, we turned around what was going to be a big live event festival that we'd done the year before into a digital format. And it was a lot of work. And we pushed ourselves a bit too much that first year. I don't know why. We decided to do, like, retrospectively, we're like, what were we thinking? We did a month-long free festival. So every day for a month, all throughout, I think it was like halfway through June into July, every day, and including weekends, there were 4 to 5 sessions that were run live on our festival website that you could take part in for free. So we wanted to make it obviously free, so it was completely accessible for people that were at home, unable to work, having a really tough time with small businesses, whatever. And they varied in, you know, in length and subject matter, whether they were talks, some were interactive classes like meditation, yoga, some storytelling, some arts and craft workshops, food and drink related workshops, and it was, I'm so proud of it. It was really lovely, and it was a lot of work, and you know, we should have only done it for like a week because it was so much work, but I'm glad that we did it because it, from the feedback we got, it was really appreciated and people really liked that it was there every day as a constant. Yeah. So I think going forward, you know, we won't do anything this summer because, you know, we would have had to put tickets on sale by now, but we're looking to do some really cool things, maybe at the later part of the year, definitely the start of the year and next summer. We've got some interesting plans where we can take the learnings from the digital side of things into what we've done previously with live events and do a bit of a hybrid. So we're sort of looking into all the possibilities for that at the moment.
I think it'll be really interesting to see, you just hearing you say hybrid, like see how much of the ways of work and the way we do things that have come about out of necessity over the last year, how much of that will remain and not. You know, we just shot a music video abroad, and obviously like the vast majority of people couldn't travel apart from the you know, the absolutely essential ones. And there's a new I mean, it's probably not that new, I just haven't made a video in a while, but there's an app that now exists where the monitor feed from what was being shot can be streamed like onto your phone, whoever you are, wherever you are. So the idea, you know, I think about the necessity of travel and its effect on, you know, on the climate and everything. And then, so there's so many conversations and, you know, people with families having to go abroad when they don't want to, all these things. It was just so interesting suddenly seeing this new adaptive way of working where you're like, oh, most of the people that would go to that shoot and the cost that would incur and whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever it's
look at what we're doing now even. I'd never used Zoom before the pandemic. I didn't know what Zoom was. I'd never done a virtual meeting or anything. And now I'm on Zoom all day, you know. It's like we've adapted so quickly, and I do think it's going to be really interesting moving forward if we can create some sort of merger between the two.
Yeah. I mean, because obviously it's become a necessity and normalized, and it is amazing in so many ways. You know, I found from like a songwriting perspective, there are some situations where it's not great, but also if you're just writing a song at an instrument with someone else and you want to be there, and that's the only way that can happen, but you also don't want to be on Zoom for longer than like a couple of hours, you just get on with it. And actually, there's some amazing stuff that's come out of it for me. I'm thinking about film and cinema, and like this year, you know, obviously there was a real resistance from I guess the sort of the bigger studios to put their films on streaming, and it's that kind of tipped, like it feels like at the end of last year. And I'm thinking about how we digest film and entertainment and how that's changed, and in the context of what you just said about things opening back up again, you know, what that's going to mean. You know, I think cinemas are starting to open again, and that's really exciting. Like, I love, it's such a unique experience. It's, you know, what they're made for, but our expectations on when things come, how they come, how we watch them, the on-demand thing. I think it would be really interesting to see, you know, what things look like on the other side of this in the context of that, because it's a unique experience you can't recreate.
Yeah, I think people will still really want to go, and you know, you feel like you're part of something at the cinema, don't you? You know, you're like with a group of people you don't know. You're watching something for the first time. There's an element of discipline involved where like you can't switch it off, or you know, you could leave, but it's kind of a bit embarrassing and disruptive. But you need to, and it's like, especially with the kids, you know, Honey said to me last week, oh, I really want to go to the cinema again. I really, really want to go. And I thought, God, that's interesting, because if anything, the kids are so used to that on-demand thing, whereas for us, we've learned to be used to it. You know, I had like 4 TV channels as a kid, but she still really understood as a 5-year-old, oh, I know, I really want to go there and like see something and get popcorn and make it an outing. So I think if anything, the hunger will be there even more, because we've sort of missed that communion when watching something in a group. I know I have, certainly.
And like celebrating something as an event, like eventizing.
Yeah.
So nice. It's like, you know, it's the same reason why live music is amazing, because you're in a room with all these absolute strangers who you might not have anything in common other than your love of this artist or this band.
Yeah, I've got no interest watching a gig online.
Yeah, no, it's tricky, isn't it? I
want to be there. I want to be singing and like bump into some, you know, like bump into strangers and like smile at people I don't know and like be there.
Yeah, but I'm really excited about going. I think we're going to go see like A Quiet Place too, just because we want something to go see.
Nice.
Just the idea of going there. I mean, at the moment, you know, obviously things are opening up slowly, but just everything feels incredibly novel. Like,
I've not been to a restaurant yet.
Have you not?
No, I haven't been anywhere. I've really got, I mean, I think 'cause I've been writing this new book, I've been a bit nerdy and I haven't really been anywhere, but I've booked to go out with a mate, not my husband, which is kind of not cool, in a couple of weeks. And yeah, I'm like really anticipating it. And normally you'd be like, oh, I'm just going for dinner, whatever. But it feels really like special. So yeah, that's going to be a moment like, oh my God, I'm going to have to wear shoes.
Yeah. We're gonna have to wear clothes from the waist down. It's quite a nice. Nice is a weird word, but it's just enforcing us to like massively appreciate all of these things.
Gratitude
that we massively took for granted.
Totally.
I hope that remains.
Me too. I do. We've got to cling on to some of the stuff we've learned. Otherwise, what's the point of all this?
No, right?
Yeah.
No.
I agree.
Charlotte, have you got any cinema plans?
Cinema plans? Yeah, I've never been to an open air screening. I think I want to really.
Oh, you have to go to Hampton Court. I did that one year. It was amazing.
Did you? Yeah, I'd love to do that. Do an open air screening.
Yeah, they do. They put old films on. Like they had some 90s ones on. I can't think what I went and saw now. I think it was like Robin Hood or something. But they do really good ones at Hampton Court Palace, and it's really beautiful. The palace is behind the screen, and
oh wow.
Ferric, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
that's a real baller place to go and see a film.
I know.
Go to a castle to watch a film.
I know, it's hilarious, but it's so gorgeous. And they had like some cool gimmicks when I went, where you sort of enter a raffle when you get your ticket, and before the film starts, someone comes out and goes, "Who's got ticket number whatever 250?" And that person, like everyone's on deck chairs, but that person gets to watch the film in a double bed. And they had like a glass of champagne, and I was like, oh, I'm really jealous. I want to be in a bed. And they just had some cool little things like that going on. But it felt really special. It did start raining a bit, but apart that, it was really good.
That's one of the
maybe I'll make my own bed. Or just make,
take your own bed. And a raincoat.
Oh, Charlotte's back with her bed.
Oh, here again. Yeah. And what about the future? Have you got plans?
Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff going on actually. We launched our book imprint this year, so we've started publishing really lovely books that carry the same ethos that the rest of Happy Place does. So we've published 2 books this year. One by the boxer Lawrence Okoli, which is amazing, all about positive mindset. And one by Dr. Olivia Reams, who is a mental health researcher at Cambridge University. And we've got 2 more book releases this year on Happy Place, which I'm really excited about because I'm a bookworm. And then also the podcast is ongoing. We're just going to keep it rolling weekly for as long as we can. So that's really good. We've got some great guests coming up. We've got a couple of sort of more sort of secret-y projects that are in, formative stages at the moment. And then live events is definitely something that we're working on for later this year, beginning of next year, and just looking at new interesting ways to do that. So we've got a lot of sort of Happy Place stuff going on, which feels really exciting. And then I just finished a new book that will come out next year, so I'm about to start the laborious process of editing that. But it's good. I'm going back to the start of this conversation. I'm keeping perfectly distracted, which is good.
Yeah, it sounds like you are spinning many plates.
Though definitely, and then the kids have been back to school for 2 seconds and it's nearly the summer holidays and all that sort of thing. Like, oh my god, what are we going to do? But no, that's all part of the fun of it.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us. It was really
thank you so much.
A pleasure. And I hope actually, Dan, I saw you during lockdown because we were filming together last summer, so I have actually seen you this year. We were at Abbey Road, weren't we?
I know, that felt wild. That was like of all the places to have a lockdown day out.
I know, because that was really in the thick of it all as well, wasn't it? And everyone was a bit not standing next to each other and stuff. But I hope I get to see you both in person soon. Yeah,
me too. That'd be awesome.
Me too. Thank you,
guys.
Good luck with the editing. Good luck with the book.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So nice to see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.